While Nabila Ramdani is a journalist and commentator and an expert on Egyptian politics, she joins us now in the London studio. Thank you very much for being with us here on Al Jazeera. We just heard from Dan Nolan now about the latest demonstrations in Cairo. You've been following developments not just in Egypt, across the Arab world. What do you make of it? I mean, it is the strongest sort of sense of anti-Mubarak sentiment that we've seen in Egypt ever, I would guess.
Absolutely. And the intensity of the demonstrations parallel the intensity of the crackdown, I want to say. And the very fact that what have been described by commentators as the new Arab politics, which is now spreading across the Arab world, in Tunisia, in Algeria, but also now in Egypt, the fact that demonstrators, angry demonstrators who can gather informally through the use of new technology, email, Facebook, Twitter, will now not be able to do so anymore because of restrictions and indeed blocks.
We're hearing that Twitter, for example, has been blocked.
Absolutely. So this is crucial in the longevity or the lack of longevity of such demonstrations. For example, the most famous Egyptian blogger won't be able to post things on the internet anymore. The independent paper Al-Masri Al-Yawm Egypt Today won't be able to put videos on its website anymore as well. And crucially, technologies like Twitter and Facebook were also used by demonstrators to wrong foot police forces and other security forces, calling for a demonstration in one place and moving to another place at the last minute.
And yet we're still seeing thousands of people out on the streets. Do you think the police crackdown will intensify?
Absolutely, and that's the main difference between what has happened in Tunisia, for example. Remember that Mubarak came to power, was designated by the army in 1981. He's strongly backed by the army, and his police forces are very heavy-handed indeed. So one shouldn't underestimate the intensity of the crackdown. Hundreds have been arrested lately. 6 people are now dead, and it's the longevity of the demonstrations is really down to people, whether they're ready to risk their lives or be arrested and put in prison effectively.
Let's focus a little now on reaction from the international community. The US, the West often saying that they want democracy across the Middle East, and yet there's always interesting responses. But we have heard from Hillary Clinton essentially calling for reform in Egypt. Very interesting that Egypt, of course, being an ally of the US, is a very crucial country in the region.
Definitely, but the Hillary Clinton statement just shows US foreign policy hypocrisy, dare I say. He was, of course, very supportive of regimes like Tunisia and Egypt, which are not exactly the most democratic regimes. And now it's calling for democracy in this region. So it's clearly protecting its interest in the region. And I would like to say it has an interest in making sure that things calm down in Egypt as they want to eventually protect their relationship with Israel.
It may be a simplistic comparison right now, but do you think that Egypt could go the way of Tunisia? Do you think that we could see a toppling of Mubarak?
I think what people are calling for now, they want fairer election. It's a crucial presidential election year for Egypt in September. The Egyptians fundamentally want to make sure that neither Mubarak nor his son will stand up for these elections. They are calling for a lift of the state of emergency, a dissolution of parliament, which was elected last November, and they want fairer elections in the future.
Nabila Ramdani, journalist and commentator, thank you very much for joining us here on Al Jazeera.